Welcome to the Performance Banker Podcast. You'll hear banking industry experts providing unique insights and expertise to help bankers achieve higher performance, obtain outstanding results, and gain a competitive advantage. Here's your host, Tanya Gossage.
Hello and welcome to the Performance Banker Podcast. I have Kelly Houghton, a Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer of financial institution with me today. Kelly is another successful banker who spent her career growing up in the banking sector. Kelly, welcome.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Kelly, it's so exciting to have an individual on the podcast like you growing up in banking.
Well, thank you. I say growing up. Yeah, I feel like I've grown up in banking. I've been here for, I think, 23 years so far. So yeah, I feel like I have grown up.
Yes, it's been so good to have individuals like you. I think most individuals that I've had on here so far have been, in that range of time. And, and when I say growing up in banking too, most individuals have spent, several years, but they've started in lower positions and then have worked themselves up into leadership positions. And so saying that, tell us how you got into banking.
Well, I would say that banking was not my first choice. I went to college. Yes, I went to college in Jonesboro, another farming community. I actually got my bachelor's in agriculture business. So I thought that I was going to come back to Stuttgart and work in some ag sector and actually, the Riceland, they're the producers of the world. And I actually started in one of those and decided that that was not for me. And I had worked at Farmers and Merchants Bank as I guess you could call it an internship. One summer when I was in high school, I had a very dear friend that I went to church with that said, "Hey, you need a job?" And I said, "Sure." So, I got to be kind of the errand girl and the girl that went and picked up breakfast every morning and went and picked up all the work from the branches and got to file the checks in that big Rolodex file, many years ago. I'm sure many bankers today don't even know what that is. And
probably not.
Yes, and actually work in the proof room some, keying checks and different deposits whenever all the work came in. So I did that one summer, loved it. Like I say, never thought I'd ever go back to Farmers and Merchants. And whenever I came back home from college, I went to work for one of the ag companies in town and decided that really wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't, fulfilling me. And so I reached back out to my former boss and asked, "Hey, do you all have any positions?" And she said, "Absolutely, come on." And so I started as a teller working in one of our branches in Stuttgart. So that's kind of where my career started, as a teller working in one of our branches. So yes, I've been in many different positions and many different roles in the bank. And like you said, I've kind of grown with the bank. I kind of grew up in the bank. I lived through Y2K. I will never forget that when everyone thought that the whole banking sector and financial sector was going to just, explode overnight. On that December 31st. And we came back the next day and we were all still there and our systems worked. And, so yeah, I will say that, like I say, I never thought that I would be in banking. I did take a few financial courses, in college, but never really thought that was, where I wanted to land my career. But coming to work at Farmers and Merchants and having the boss that I did, and actually truly a mentor to me more than a boss, teaching me the ropes. And, at that time we were a small bank and very close knit. Everyone in that bank knew everybody, their family, their kids, their grandparents, everything. And so we were close. We were very close. And I just I had a lot of opportunities within the bank that I had our president, I went to work with him for probably a 5-year stint. And that is where I would say that I probably grew the most, is working under his leadership. And he exposed me to so many sectors of our bank that I never even knew existed. Starting as a teller, you don't really know that those different, avenues exist in the bank. From shareholders, I worked with shareholders, loans, deposits, working with our asset liability management. So I got very exposed to a lot of different sectors in our bank, and I'm grateful that he gave me that opportunity to learn and push me to be a better person. So that's kind of how I got my start.
That is awesome. So you speak about, being a courier. That's what we used to call it back then, being a courier, to, filing those checks. I remember too, in filing checks, I did some of that in my day as well, making sure that the written amount matched the whole amount.
Yes.
And, filing them in the right slot, if you will, that went and making sure the signatures match the signature card. Oh my Lord, have we come a long way today?
We have, yes, we have come a long way. And then I just remember taking all of those checks that I filed, and that's what went, in the statement back to the customer.
Yes.
They all got bundled up and mailed back in that statement. So yes, we have come a long way.
Yes. And then Y2K, you mentioned Y2K. I mean, how many of us didn't rest that well that night, just wondering when midnight struck whether or not the world was going to fall apart? I remember that so well, and all of that prep work, to get to that night.
Yes.
Such crazy times that was, but fun times.
It was fun in the fact of when we came back the next day that, our whole system hadn't exploded, and, all of our financial data was there. But I can remember them prepping, for it, and, listening on the news, and even our IT department doing backup after backup after backup, making sure that everything, if it did happen, we had a backup of everything that we had done up until that time. So yes, it is kind of funny, now as you kind of sit back and reflect, what were we expecting to happen? I mean, I sit back and I think, were they expecting all of the computers to just explode and all the data to be gone? And, like I say, where we've come today, yeah, it's kind of funny to sit back and look at, now you think how foolish that was, that we thought that we were going to come in the next day and, nobody's money was going to be in their accounts, and it was just going to be floating out in space somewhere.
I know. And to think about where technology is today. And then you also talk about, the leader that you had that mentored you to get you where you are today. So talk a little bit, you talked about all the things that you got to do that helped you get today. Did you have other mentors other than the president and or the CEO that helped you get from position to position? Maybe talk about some of those opportunities that you had to help get you to where you are today. Maybe some of the departments that you were able to work in. I mean, you talked high level about that, but talk about how they took you under their wing and helped you get to where you are. Because today there are still some leaders out there that do that, and maybe even talk about how you help people today, because I think that's so important as people today are wanting such success. And I had those same leaders that helped me get to where I ended up. And that's really what I love about this podcast is people learning and understanding how they too can move forward, or how people can help other individuals move forward. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so yes, I have had many mentors throughout the years, and I continue today. I have a lot of mentors that, that help me, and I reach out to a lot. But so from where I started, whenever I talked about, starting as a teller, yes, I did. Like I say, she was a family friend. She actually was my parents, one of their best friends, and basically took me in and showed me the ropes of how, like at that time, like I say, I was in the teller line. And so how the operations of the tellers work. I think I was actually, she probably trained me for about 3 days and then put me in a window and was like, you got this, you can do it. But she didn't leave me. She was next to me in a window working right beside me. And I'll never forget, it was on a Friday, the 3rd of the month. And she put me in a window for my very first time on a Friday and the 3rd of the month. And if you know anything about banking, you know that Fridays are busy, and especially the 3rd of the month. And I had no idea what I was getting into. And when those doors opened at 9 o'clock and those people rushed in, I was like, I do not know what I'm going to do, but I made it through. I will tell you that I did not balance that day. That was one of my first days that I did not balance, but she helped me. We worked through it. We worked for a couple of days in finding those outages. And like I say, just giving me the opportunity. I worked with her whenever it was called the bookkeeping department. Like, you talked about whenever I worked there for that summer. So I got to experience all of that. And there wasn't anything that I ever asked that she wouldn't tell me about or expose me to. And then I moved on into the loan department, and I had the opportunity to work with our real estate lender. I was a loan assistant for our real estate lender, and she was an absolute godsend. And I'll tell you that today, her and I are best friends. She is one of my absolute best friends. She ended up leaving the bank probably about 6 months after I, went to work for her. But in that 6-month period, she taught me so much, and how to respect people, how to work with customers, and not just necessarily always give the customer what they think they need, but actually digging in and figuring out, from their life exactly what it is they need. Sometimes customers think there's one certain thing that they need, but when you actually sit down and you build a relationship with them, you know that maybe that's not what they need. And there's another service or product that you have or not. And that, you at the end of the day say, I'm sorry, but, this is not what's best for you, right now in your time. And so just the way that she worked with customers and built relationships with them, and truly, I think, built a family around all of the customers that, she came in contact with. She had aspirations in being a leader every day. And I'll never forget one of the things that, she told me. She said, I looked the CEO in the eye and told him I'm going to have his job one day. And and no doubt if she would have stayed there, I'm pretty sure she probably would have. But just to see that drive in her was something that just lit a spark in me, that I wanted that same drive. Like I say, that was early on in my career. And so I was lucky to be able to have that experience, to know that I wanted to be someone like that. And like I say, her and I are best friends now, and I wouldn't trade anything in the world for it. So we kind of, kid every now and then, where would we be with both of us in our positions today, would we be knocking heads to try to be in charge?
No doubt. No doubt.
No, yes. And after that, like I say, I went to work with our president and CEO, Don Patillo at the time. And at the time, whenever I first started with him, I didn't realize what he was doing for me, but he threw so much at me and would not let me give up. I mean, if I came in and told him, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't know how to do this report. I don't know what you want. And he was like, yes, you do. You go look here and you go look there. And this is, you know, how you get that information. And even in, you know, at that time, being assistant to the president, you know, you did a lot of secretary work and, you know, writing his letters and correspondence for him. And I can remember the very first letter that I wrote for him that he wanted to send out to customers. And it looked like whenever I got it back that he bled all over it, because he basically took that letter that I wrote and rewrote everything in red ink, because he was a school teacher at one time. So he was used to grading papers, you know. And so I was just like, oh my goodness. But I mean, just that little bit, I learned so much. I mean, I never made that mistake again. And so from him showing me, you know, what mistakes I had made, you have to take it in stride. You can't always think that everything is, criticism or negative criticism.
Right.
And it's a lot of time it's constructive criticism, and you have to be able to learn from that. And that's been one of the biggest things that early on that I realized, especially with him, he's only doing this to make me better. Wow. And whenever he retired, you know, one of the things that, you know, he said to me is, I hope you remember all the things that I taught you. And I'm like, I'm never going to forget them. I mean, I can tell you so many things stand out in my mind where he was, criticizing something that I had done, but he was trying to make me a better person. And, you know, and he told me, he said, I knew you had it in you, you know. And whenever I got my job as our chief operations officer, he came to me and he said, I knew you had it in you. That is why I pushed you so hard. I saw it early on. And so I'll never forget that. And I just hope someday that someone, has the same thing to say about me, because I have learned over the years from each one of these mentors that, you know, it's the way that you treat people and it's the way that you coach and train them to be a better person every day. So then next in my career, I got the opportunity to work with our president and CEO, Gary Houghton. Gary was in our DeWitt branch and came up, and when Don retired, became our president and CEO. And he gave me the opportunity to actually run our loan ops department. And just from his, you know, experience throughout the years in lending and customer relations, and he was, very good at managing our securities portfolio. He knew it like the back of his hand, and that was something that I never had experience in. So he taught me a lot with our securities portfolio and just lending in general. And so he gave me the opportunity to take on our loan operations area. And whenever he retired, our new CEO that we have today, Brad Chambliss, gave me the opportunity to be our chief operations officer. And we kind of redesigned and reorganized our structure. As you know, we've grown throughout the years. And so I think that Brad and I would say that we lean on each other a lot, because if there's something I don't know, I'm going to ask him. And if there's something he doesn't know, he's coming to ask me. So that just continues, you know. I think, you know, every day there's someone out there that you can mentor or that is mentoring you that sometimes you don't even realize it. But I think that you have to kind of be present in every moment and realize that, there's an opportunity to learn something every day. There's probably not a day goes by that I don't learn something from the people that I'm around.
Wow, that is so exciting and so rewarding to have that many mentors throughout your career, and especially those that have been CEOs, of the institution. So that's some valuable, feedback here in the podcast, but also that have impacted your life. And I think that's incredible. So what's been the most rewarding that you can think of throughout your development into your Chief Operations Officer title?
So there's been so many things, but the one thing that kind of stands out to me, and like I mentioned just a little bit ago, we have grown over the past, probably 8 years. We vastly have grown over the past 8 years. And being able to be a part of the teams that went into those banks that we acquired, and building those relationships and bringing those team members on, I'm sure that that's not ever an easy task. Whenever you take two cultures, two banks, and you try to bring them together, sometimes it doesn't work, and then sometimes it does work. And I'm very blessed that both of the acquisitions that I got to be on, the teams that went in and actually merged our departments, it was very successful. And I have built so many relationships through that. And I think that you have to be open-minded whenever you go into, it's almost like you go into someone else's home and you're telling them, all right, you're not doing this anymore. You're fixing to do something different. And so you have to, you have to understand from their point of view, what that must feel like. Someone coming in and telling you everything you've done for the past 20 years, you're not doing it again, and you're going to do it my way. And I think that you have to really understand how to build relationships with those people. And, my way is not always the right way. Their way is probably not always the right way. But at the end of the day, we're going to decide to do it this way. And then we're going to come back and revisit it and see how collectively together we can make it better. And I'll say that in both of those acquisitions, we've been very successful in that endeavor. And I truly, truly have built some wonderful relationships. And I have people in both organizations that I count as my family. We talk outside of work, and I know everything about their families. They know everything about my families, and just the relationships that were built that I probably would not have the opportunity to build if those acquisitions hadn't have been there, and if we hadn't have worked together to be successful. And so that's been the most rewarding thing for me, to be able to see that come to fruition. Just those relationships and working together, because it was never easy.
Right.
Never easy.
Right.
And you just have to power through all the hard stuff, and know on the other side the good things are going to come.
Well, and I think too, going through those hard times with them and just building that relationship as you're going through those hard times, they see too that you're a human being. And, you were there for them as they were going through that difficult time, makes that relationship even more meaningful because you were there to listen to them as they were going through that hard time. So, and too, willing to hear what changes needed to be made that weren't working so well. Even after you said, this is the way we're going to do it and we'll revisit it later. Yeah. Later actually did come back around. It wasn't that we're not going to revisit it even after you said we would. You did. And, yes. I think sticking to your word was very meaningful to those people. And it built that trust factor up so much more. And I think, again, it just deepened that relationship that you can have with the people that are no longer there, but those that are still there, because those people talk to those people.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And, we didn't have all the answers and they didn't have all the answers. And being able to sit at the table and talk through the issues and say, all right, what is going to be best, for both teams and for this bank and for our customers, and our shareholders and our employees, and just being able to sit around the table and talk and and listen to what they had to say, because, they brought a lot of years of knowledge to the table. And, they were in different, markets than we had ever been in. And so we had to sit down and listen to, what worked in their market, probably did not work in our market. So we had to come up with different strategies, different, processes, procedures that would work for the greater good of everyone. And so, like I say, those relationships I truly, truly cherish. That has been one of my most rewarding things that I've been able to be a part of.
Yeah, that's great. So as you've been climbing the ladder of success over those 20 plus years, what has been the most challenging?
So the most challenging, I would say, and probably to anybody, if you are a person that truly has drive and you want to succeed, and maybe like me, sometimes don't have the patience to wait on it, I would say that, learning and basically, living in the moment. So not all of us can go from a teller to the CEO in 6 months. Like, you have to learn, the process, and you also have to enjoy the journey, because there is a journey to get you there.
Yes.
And you have to be willing to learn along the way. And sometimes things don't happen in your time. It happens, in someone else's time, but it's always usually the right time. And you have to be content and grow yourself in whatever position you're in, but never stop striving, to be better, or, to want another position or a leadership position or whatever. And I think that sometimes is the most difficult for people, is to be content and enjoy where they're at, but be the best person you can be in that job today, and learn everything that you can learn from the mentors there, your peers that you work with. Like I say, sometimes that's hard for people to understand, that success just doesn't come overnight. Like, if you truly want a career in a certain industry, you have to learn everything about that industry. And that's not done overnight. That's years worth of experience. Like I say, I've been in banking for 23 years. And I'll tell you, I still don't have all the answers or know everything about the banking industry. And so I think that, if you are in a position, truly, truly be a leader in that position, be a leader in that department, learn as much as you can, utilize all the knowledge that your peers, your mentors, everybody has, and know that it's a journey. It's not, it's not a sprint. Because if you truly want to understand the industry, you're gonna have to run a marathon and not a sprint. And so, and I think that, like I say, that sometimes that's hard for people. And at first it was hard for me, because, there were certain goals and aspirations I had for myself, but it never was the right time. And now that I look back over the years, I'm like, I needed to stay in that department another year to learn, more about loans, or, our shareholders or whatever. And so I would say that sometimes that's challenging for people, to be content and enjoy the journey where you're at, but learn while you're there.
I heard, Kelly, this morning on a live event that I was watching via Zoom, this phenomenal analogy of just what you're talking about. And the gentleman who was on stage talking, he used a pinata as the example. And he talked about how we do get impatient, but you think about being at a birthday party, and he used a boy's birthday party, and maybe the strongest guy goes first and hits the pinata, and you're not seeing the action that's taking place in the job that you're at, but you're working hard, and you know what you're doing is going forth towards the journey that you're talking about, and it's action, and your mentors are watching and things are taking place. But so the first guy hits the pinata, bruises it, whatever you want to call it, but you don't see anything. The next guy gets up there, he hits it again, damage is done, it's bruised. And again, you're still working. Maybe you get a little promotion and you're still working, but you know, the evidence is really not showing up yet. And you just go through all these boys at the birthday party, and the weakest guy gets up there. But what happens if they gave up on hitting the pinata, and this is you at the job, and you decide you're not ever going to get there and you leave the job? When you're at the last guy, the skinny guy that hits it, and the candy all falls out, and you leave that job right before they're about to give you the promotion, and you've given up.
Exactly.
You know, so the analogy of that, and the person that's worked, and you don't know you're just about to get it, and you walk away from being frustrated. You've put in all this work, you've done all these things, and then boom, you gave up too early on the brink of your success, the brink of your miracle, whatever you want to call it. You've given up. You've got to continue to put in the work, continue to beat that pinata until the success comes, you know? And so,
yes.
I mean, that when I heard that this morning, I thought, I love that analogy, because it's so good, because people they give up just right before something takes place, and we just got to keep going. So yeah, I love that. So what about banker's hours? You were back in the day, where, I can't go to the bank because you guys are closed. And I know you guys do close a little early, but I know you've heard those terms. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yes, it is.
Do you have banker's hours, Phil?
I wish I had banker's hours that everybody talks about. So, you know, whenever I first started, the bank didn't open until 9 and closed at, I think at that time might have closed like at 2.
Yeah,
everyone took an hour break, came back from 4 to 6. Yes, because we had to have all that time to process everything, that had happened. And so everyone just kind of has that in their mind, bankers only work from 9 to 3 or 9 to 2. I wish that I only worked from 9 to 2. I'll have to say that probably more times than not, I probably work too much. I'm probably too accessible with being able to answer emails or jump on meetings or work from, home or my laptop. Yes, I wish I had banker's hours from, 9 to 3, but no, we get there at 8. And then most of the times, we don't leave until after 5 or 6, or sometimes we go home and still work, 7 to 9, whatever. But, that's kind of funny that, that still exists, and people think that, bankers only work from 9 to 3 and then they go play golf or go do whatever. Yeah, that is not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the changes that you've seen through your 23 years that are now for the better in banking?
So, there have been so many, just I mean, even the change from how a bank was looked at 23 years ago to today, how a bank is looked at, and the products and services that I guess, have come out throughout the different, I guess, decades, whenever ATMs went in years ago, everyone thought they were the devil. But today they're probably one of the most used machines in the world, to get cash, and instead of going through a traditional teller line or drive through or something like that. One of the biggest things that I have seen, and over the years, I'm not saying that this was a bad thing 20 years ago when it started, was customers, everything was done on a handshake, and kind of like I talked about earlier. A customer come in and say, "Oh, I need a $20,000 loan." What was done on a handshake? And did we actually invest the time in our customers to understand what their needs truly were? Did we dig into their businesses and do the underwriting and do all the things and actually be a partner, be an extension of whatever that business is? And I've got to see that kind of grow over the years, from just coming in and saying, "Oh, I need, $20,000 to actually sitting down and building a relationship with that customer. I've seen our lenders do it so many times, especially in our ag sector. I've seen that team build relationships and actually be an extension of that farm, and, helping and guiding those farmers for whatever their financial needs are, and truly learning about their business. That's been one of the changes that I've seen. Another is our technology, and our customers being able to have technology at their fingertips to bank whenever they need to bank. So many people talk about technology as the devil, but it has brought, even through the pandemic, we've learned so much through the pandemic. It has brought new services and products to the forefront for our customers, for them to have a better experience, for them to be able to not have to leave work and come to the bank, for them to be able to apply for a loan, at home, sitting on their couch, or open a checking account, on their lunch break, sitting in the parking lot at Sonic. Or depositing a check, wow, maybe a college kid depositing a check that they just got. I'll use my daughter as an example. She umpires in the college town that she's at, and they still give her a check. And so she's able to mobile deposit that check, and she's 2 hours away. We don't have a branch in the town that she's in. So she's able to take her paycheck and still deposit it into her checking account. And so I think just the customer experience and them being able to bank whenever they need to bank, instead of, like you talked about, banker's hours, they're only able to bank whenever, we're open. And one of our latest, technologies that we put into place probably about a year and a half now is our integrated teller machines, where we have live tellers servicing our drive-throughs throughout our state. And we're able now to offer that service to our customers from 7 to 7. And so that, is vastly different from the 9 to 3 that our drive-throughs were open. Now our customers can, bank before they go to work or after they get off work, and not have to be conformed to our hours. Yeah.
I'm so excited I get excited when you talk about technology like that, because I remember going to the super center and complaining about having to put my items in the basket and then getting to the cashier and having to take them out of the basket, put them on the counter, then put them back in my basket, and then put them in my vehicle, and then drive home, get them out of my vehicle, take them into the house and put them on the counter, then get them back out of the bags and put them up. And I've said so many times to the cashiers, someday somebody will create a way that we don't have to do this mess anymore. And
yes.
So when they came out with, being able to order online and go pick it up, I was so excited that happened because I did not have to do all of those steps anymore. And then when I could order and they brought them to my door, I was even more excited.
Now they'll just develop someone to put them up for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I will tell you, yesterday, I was in Sam's Club to pick up something, and I kid you not, I was on the phone with someone, and all of a sudden, this robot comes by me, and it's going beep, 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 and I turn around and I look at it, and I said to the individual on the phone, "You are not going to believe what is happening right now." And I said, "This robot just went by me, and it is doing an inventory scan."
Oh, wow.
It was inventorying everything that was in the frozen aisle. And then it went down an aisle and it was inventorying everything on the shelves. Mm-hmm. And not only was I standing there at awe, there were 4 other people standing beside me going, wow. And I'm sure there's people all over the world that has seen that before. But I was so enamored with that. I was thinking, if that can do that, when are they going to create one that I can have in my home that is literally putting my stuff up? That's exactly what I thought.
Yes, yes.
But I was enamored with that. And, I have asked people when I am interviewing vendors, clients on here, how do you handle when individuals are nervous that technology is going to take away their job? And honestly, I don't think we need to be concerned that it's going to take away our job. There's plenty of work to be done. We just move people in other locations because there is so much work to be done. But technology is just so phenomenal. And I'll give you one other example and then we'll move on. But we had an account, my husband and I had an account that we weren't using it. It was just sitting there idle, and I didn't want it to go into dormant status and then have those fees. So I sent an email to a teller and I said, this is about to go dormant. I wanted to close it. We're not using it and just merge it into our main checking account. Can I do this online? The next thing I knew, I got a DocuSign withdrawal slip. And all I had to do was electronically sign it. Mm-hmm. And I got the notification, a text message on my phone that the balance was 0. I never had to go to the bank. Everything was done. I emailed him back and said, thank you so much for saving me time. And that's where we are. And I know you all are making so many changes to move into many other technology areas. And I'm so excited about that because that is just such time savings. And I love it. I love it. And I'm so thrilled that we are there. Yeah. Now there are other areas that do scare me, but we are there and I'm so excited about that. Yeah. So, how do you, Kelly, self-educate yourself about what's going on in the world, or the way that you read to do personal development or anything like that? How do you do that?
So I would say that one of my first things to self-educate is I have peers around me every day that are smarter than me. So never be nervous to surround yourself with smart people. And utilizing the knowledge that they have. We all come from, different backgrounds and different, even in our bank, different departments, and the background and knowledge that they have. That's one of my biggest ways that I, self-educate is, reaching out to them and going, hey, I don't know how to do this, but do you, or what does this mean? And then two, if there's something that I know is coming down the pipeline from regulators, compliance, whatever it might be, you know, I do seek out different webinars, different trainings, different things like that, you know, to educate myself on. And then another thing, you know, I read a lot of books. There's several of us in the bank that we talk weekly, sometimes monthly, and we talk about the different books that we've read. Especially, we've been reading a lot here lately on leadership and management and culture and all kinds of things. And so we've been giving each other, you know, different books to read. So up until probably the last couple of years, I've never been really one to read books. But the last couple of years, I've kind of got into reading books. You can learn so much, and there's so much out there. You know, we read a book not too long ago that was written probably 10 years ago. But after we read it, we were like, this is like Big Brother. Are they like looking inside our institution and know what's going on? Because it was a book about our bank. And I was like, this is so funny that this was written 10 years ago and the same, you know, things that were happening then are happening today. And so,
Wow.
yeah. So a lot of books, webinars, and just learning from, you know, my peers and different consultants, you know, like yourself, you know, we reached out, we don't know how to do this. So can you help us? So I'm never afraid to ask for advice or ask someone's opinion about something. That's for sure. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out, or we'll find somebody that does.
I love that. That's great. So
Yes.
speaking about books, do you have a book that you would highly recommend to the listeners that would be a must read?
I do. I actually have it here just in case you asked me that question. It's a book I read it's probably been about 6 years ago now, maybe even longer, but it has stuck with me almost weekly after I read this book. I go back in my mind to this book and a lot of things, and it is called The Best Yes.
Oh.
And yes, and it is by Lisa TerKeurst. And
what was her last name?
It's Lisa TerKeurst.
Okay.
TerKeurst. And it's called The Best Yes. And it basically talks about, you know, as you kind of climb the ladder of success per se, there are challenges along the way, and there are things that people will throw at you and want you to be a part of. And hey, can you be on this committee? And can you, you know, be in this civic club? Can you work on this project? Can, you know, just all the things. And as you're climbing that ladder of success, our first response is, oh, I can't ever tell anybody no, because if I tell somebody no, then they're going to think that I can't do the job. But after reading this book, you know, it's about the best yes. So you really have to evaluate yourself and decide where your time is best spent. Because, you know, even for me, you know, kind of coming up through the ranks, you know, and as a mother and having to divide my time from, you know, building my career, coming home and having a family, and, you know, and then having, you know, life outside of work and your family, you have to decide what is your best yes, and where are you going to tell somebody yes, and where you're going to tell somebody no. Because when you tell somebody yes, that means that you're taking away from another sector, you know, of your life. And so you have to really evaluate what is important to you, what is important to those around you, and not bog yourself down and just constantly tell everybody, yes, I'll take on that project, or I'll take on that committee, or I'll go be the little league coach or whatever. Because, you know, you really have to evaluate, you know, what's important for you and those surrounding you. And I have to go back to, you know, that book a lot. And it comes to mind often when someone's like, hey, Kelly, will you be on this committee? And I'm like, I'm going to have to think about that. Can I get back to you? And really evaluate, is that really something that you want to spend your time on? Is that, is that the journey that you want to go down? Because once you say yes, it's going to take you in a whole different, journey in life. And you have to be willing to commit to that. Because if you want to be the best at what you're doing, you can't spread yourself so thin, because then you're really no good to anybody. So you have to decide, what matters to you and what your drive is and what's best for those around you. And so that's been one of my, like I say, my go-tos that I constantly, when someone asks me to take something on, I'm like, I'm going to have to think about that. But many years ago, I would have just said, yeah, I'll do it, because you don't ever want to tell anybody no. And because you feel, sometimes you feel like you are a failure when you tell somebody no, that you can't do something. But you just have to realize that it's okay to say no sometimes, and give them the why behind why you can't do whatever it is that they told you, and just be honest with them. Honesty is always the best policy. And so, yes, that has been one of my go-to books.
Wow, I love that. And we'll mention that in the show notes as well, so that others can take a look at it if they want to. I may have to read that myself, because I was in the same shoes at one point. I felt like I always had to say yes to what people asked me to do. And the thing about, being willing to do what other people won't do, that was another thing. And so I always felt like I needed to do certain things and be on everything. And you can stretch yourself so thin that it's hard to be then productive at the things that you need to be perfecting yourself at. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah. And you have to realize when you say yes to something, you're neglecting something else. So you have to figure out that balance of, if you're going to neglect something else, is it worth neglecting it, for whatever you're going to say yes to? And so, yes, that's so true.
I have learned now from one of my two coaches that I have now, is that if I want to take on something new, I have to give something up. So, so if I'm going to be on something new, I'm going to purchase something new, whatever, what am I going to give up? Because I can't do two.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah. So I love
exactly.
that. Love that. So what is one piece of advice, as we're coming to the end here, what's one piece of advice that you would give to the audience, as someone like you, in my eyes, who has been very successful in their career, in parting ways here, for other people who want to be successful? What is a piece of advice that you would leave them?
I would say that one of the biggest things in being successful is you have to know what it is that you want. You can't ever let someone else decide that for you. You have to know within yourself exactly what that is. And everyone's success looks different. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everyone wants to be the CEO. And you have to truly figure out within yourself and be okay with whatever that success looks like for you. Because like I say, everyone's looks different. We can't all be the same. And, once you do decide that, I would say for, anyone starting out their career, really think long and hard about what it is that you truly want. And then do everything in your power to educate yourself about it. Make yourself stand out. Always, be a team player. That is one of the biggest things. If you can't be a team player, most teams don't want you around. And so I would just, leave everyone with, figuring out exactly what it is, what's your drive in life, what brings you joy every day, and what is the why behind whatever it is that you're doing. Because once you figure out your why, everything else just kind of falls into place.
Oh my goodness, Kelly, what gold. I mean, that is so good. And it's so true. There's ways to be successful. Can you be successful and not happy? Sure. But you can be so much more successful by figuring out what it is that you want to do and what your drive is and what your passion is. So you have dropped many, many gold nuggets, actually diamonds today. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for being here and giving such great information to our listeners. And for those of you that are in the audience listening today, I know that you've had to have found value in what Kelly has shared. And if you did, please leave us a comment and share what you resonated with in what she had to say. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, do that right now. Take a second and do that right now. And be sure to forward this podcast or this session to a friend, to a coworker, to a loved one. And I would be delighted that if you shared this on your social media to help us spread the word. And here at Gossage Performance Consulting, we believe that performance drives results. And she shared that with you even today in this session. And until the next episode, let's go out there and get some of those results that we discussed today.
Thank you, Tanya, for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you so much again.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to download and subscribe wherever you get your shows. Find more content on our YouTube channel. Link is in the show notes. This podcast is sponsored by GossagePerformanceConsulting.com.